Thanksgiving was supposed to be a time for family, a time to give thanks for what one had. For Jenny, it had always been a cherished holiday. But this year, everything was different. The quiet town of Maplewood, with its picturesque streets and friendly faces, was about to be plunged into a nightmare. Jenny walked down the main street, her breath visible in the cold November air. The town was preparing for the annual Thanksgiving parade, and the festive decorations were in full swing. Colorful banners hung from lampposts, and the smell of roasted turkey filled the air. But something felt off, a sense of unease that Jenny couldn't shake. She had returned to Maplewood after a decade of living in the city. The small town held painful memories she had tried to bury. But with her parents gone and her brother Tom insisting she come back for Thanksgiving, she had reluctantly agreed. Tom had always been the golden child, the one everyone admired. He was the star quarterback in high school, went to a prestigious college, and now had a successful career. Jenny, on the other hand, had always felt like she was living in his shadow. She had her own successes, but they never seemed to measure up in the eyes of their parents. As she approached the old family home, a sense of dread washed over her. The house looked the same, yet it felt different. The windows were dark, and the front lawn was overgrown. She pushed open the creaky front door and stepped inside. "Tom? Are you here?" she called out, her voice echoing in the empty house. There was no answer. She set her bags down and wandered through the house, memories flooding back with every step. The smell of her mother's cooking, the sound of her father's laughter, the feel of the old wooden floors under her feet. But those memories were tainted by what had happened 10 years ago, on a cold November night, much like this one. She made her way to the kitchen where a note was taped to the fridge. "Jenny, you'll be back soon. Went to get some last-minute things for dinner. Make yourself at home." Tom Jenny sighed and put the note back. She decided to explore the house to see if anything had changed. As she walked through the hallways, she noticed that some of the family photos were missing. In their place were strange symbols carved into the walls. She ran her fingers over one of the carvings, a chill running down her spine. What the hell was this? She went upstairs to her old room, the door slightly ajar. Pushing it open, she saw that it was just as she had left it. The bed was neatly made, her old posters still on the walls. But something felt wrong. She couldn't put her finger on it, but it was as if the room itself was watching her. Suddenly, she heard a noise from downstairs. Her heart pounded in her chest as she crept back down the stairs. The front door was open, and she could see a figure standing in the doorway. "Tom!" she called out. The figure stepped into the light, and Jenny's blood ran cold. It wasn't Tom. It was a man she didn't recognize, with wild eyes and a crazed smile. He was holding a large knife, the blade glinting in the dim light. "Who are you?" Jenny demanded, backing away. The man didn't answer. He just kept smiling, the knife held out in front of him. Jenny's mind raced as she tried to think of what to do. She couldn't run out the front door. He was blocking her path. She turned and ran into the kitchen, searching for something to defend herself with. She grabbed a large carving knife from the counter and turned to face the intruder. He was right behind her, his smile widening as he lunged at her. She dodged to the side, slashing at him with the knife. He let out a howl of pain as the blade cut into his arm, but it didn't slow him down. Jenny fought with everything she had, the two of them locked in a deadly struggle. She managed to push him back, and he stumbled, falling to the floor. She took her chance and ran out the back door, into the cold night air. She ran through the backyard, the sound of the man's footsteps close behind. She knew she had to find help, but the houses were too far apart. She could see the lights of the neighbor's house in the distance and sprinted towards it. She reached the front door and pounded on it, screaming for help. The door opened and Mrs. Thompson, the elderly neighbor, stood there with a look of shock on her face. "Jenny? What's going on?" she asked. "Call the police." "There is a man in my house. He's trying to kill me," Jenny cried. Mrs. Thompson's eyes widened, and she hurried to the phone. Jenny glanced back. The man was nowhere to be seen. She hoped he had given up, but but she knew better. He was still out there, somewhere in the darkness. The police arrived quickly and Jenny explained what had happened. They searched the house but found no sign of the intruder. The strange symbols carved into the walls were noted, but no one could explain what they meant. Tom arrived home shortly after, his face pale when he saw the police cars outside. He rushed to Jenny, hugging her tightly. "Are you okay?" "What happened?" he asked, his voice trembling. Jenny explained everything, and Tom's expression grew darker with every word. "I knew something was wrong," he said. "I've been getting these strange letters, threats. I thought it was just a prank, but now the police promised to keep an eye on the house and left, leaving Jenny and Tom alone." They sat in the living room, the tension thick in the air. "Why didn't you tell me about the letters?" Jenny asked, anger and fear in her voice. "I didn't want to worry you," Tom admitted. "I thought I could handle it." Jenny shook her head. "This is serious, Tom. We need to find out who's doing this and why." The next few days were a blur of fear and paranoia. The police patrolled the area, but there were no signs of the intruder. Tom and Jenny tried to go about their lives, but the sense of dread hung over them. On the night before Thanksgiving, Jenny couldn't sleep. She kept hearing noises, convinced the man was back. She got up and went downstairs, the house eerily quiet. She checked the locks on the doors and windows, making sure everything was secure. As she turned to head back upstairs, she saw something that made her blood run cold. The strange symbols had appeared on the walls again, this time in what looked like blood. She screamed and Tom came rushing down. "What is it?" he asked, his eyes wide with fear. "The symbols! They're back!" Jenny pointed to the wall. Tom's face went pale. This can't be happening. They called the police again, and this time, they brought in a specialist. The symbols were identified as part of an ancient ritual, something dark and sinister. The specialist explained that it was a summoning ritual, used to call forth dark entities. Jenny felt sick. "Who would do this?" "I don't know," the specialist said. "But whoever it is, they're serious. This isn't just a prank." Thanksgiving Day arrived, and the town went ahead with the parade and festivities. But for Jenny and Tom, it was a day of fear. They stayed inside, the police keeping watch. But as night fell, the sense of dread grew stronger. They sat in the living room, the only light coming from the flickering candles on the table. The house was silent, too silent. Suddenly, there was a loud bang, and the front door flew open. The man was back, his crazed eyes gleaming in the candlelight. He rushed at them, the knife in his hand. Jenny and Tom fought back, but he was strong, too strong. He overpowered them, and they fell to the floor. As Jenny lay there, her vision fading, she saw the man standing over them, the knife raised. He was chanting something in a language she didn't understand, the strange symbols glowing on the walls. And then, everything went black. When Jenny awoke, she was in the hospital. She was covered in bandages, her body aching. Tom was in the bed next to hers, unconscious but alive. The police were there, and they explained that they had arrived just in time. The man had been captured, but he refused to speak, his eyes filled with madness. The symbols were identified as part of a dark cult, something that had been dormant for decades. The police assured them that the threat was over, but Jenny couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't. As she lay there, she realized that Thanksgiving would never be the same. The memories of that night would haunt her forever. She had survived, but the scars, both physical and mental, would never fade. And somewhere, deep in the shadows, she knew that the darkness was still watching, waiting for its next chance to strike.